Leslie Flowers is back for a encore performance from yesterday. So, so she's gracing us with her ability to consistently expand what she just did. With that said, if it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it's the Hour of Empower live stream on YouTube and LinkedIn simultaneously. And we've just added another benefit. We're calling this Sunday the Reflection Show. So, an opportunity to reflect on your week, also to look forward to the next week. And I believe in time, uh, gratitude will probably creep into it in order to give reflection a better feel and twist. But again,
Absolutely.
the themes will change based on audience interaction, based on who is being featured, and really getting closer to core competency, where people are kind of just like a TV guide used to be. They know what's coming up, right? So if they're into coaching, if they're into empowerment, if they're into whatever, and that way we'll be able to concentrate those leaders in those areas to those areas, right? So it's just a great thing. With that, I'm going to say hello to Christine. Christine's here on a lovely Sunday morning. It's sunny out here in Denver. You know, when we were talking yesterday, it was 14 degrees. Uh, and now it's back to normal. And we've got Felix. I don't think I've seen Felix before, but welcome. However you found us, we're glad you did. With that, I want to turn it over to Leslie. She could catch you up since yesterday if you were here, or a couple weeks before if you weren't. And she can share her first initial thoughts on reflection. Carl's here, one of the initial collaboration group founders and members. Great to have you, Carl. You're on Wednesday with Matt Walsh, who's just an unbelievable gentleman, and they're working together. With that, Leslie, take it away.
Well, good morning, and good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're calling in from. Glad you're here. I'm Leslie Flowers, and I am a master of achievement and manifestation. And it's fun to be here on Don's shows and get to have a nice dialogue about different subjects. And we do rely on your comments. So welcome, Carl, Felix, and Christine, my sister from another mother, Christine Fede. So reflection is taking a moment to be present. And we did a lot of that this week. In the United States, we have Thanksgiving. Not too long before that, Canada had their Thanksgiving. And the thing about being thankful and reflecting on gratitude, we wait until Thanksgiving in general to make a big deal about Thanksgiving and to think about the history. And we have plays, the kids have plays, etc., if they're still allowed to do that, explaining the history of Thanksgiving in our country. But the thing is that I don't know if you've ever thought about this, Donald, and I don't know if you have, but every idea that we get, if we fall in love with it and decide that we're doing this next, then we can be grateful every day for every idea, because only humans can take an idea, right, which is thought energy, right? It has no real form that you can see, and turn it into physical matter. Mm-hmm. So there's a wonderful quote, Donald, by an Austrian physician and psychiatrist, or psychiatrist and PhD. Anyway, has 2 degrees. Alfred Adler, I'm grateful to the idea that has used me. And when I first heard that, I thought, what is he talking about? I just could not make sense out of it. But every idea that's already circulating and available to us must have conscious awareness. In other words, it's got to go through a human with conscious awareness in order for it to manifest. So the thing is, you can reflect on any day because you're always getting ideas, and it's a good practice to reflect every week what you've done that week. And that's what Sundays look like now on the Empower Hour.
Well put. And I think there's some nuggets there that everybody can learn and build on. What I'm hearing when Leslie was just talking is reflection is a continuous process, right? You do something and you reflect on it, right? Is it, you make a soup, is it salty enough? Well, you're always going back to it to embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, you don't have too long of a wait before reflections, right? If you wait once a week, how are you going to remember on Tuesday something came, unless you wrote it down and you stored it, but you could have just dealt with it. Because
Yes.
reflection is just an observation, right? Is it cloudy outside? I'll go out and look. And once you see it, doesn't take long to come back in and say whatever it was. So if you're, there's that whole process of plan, do, review, right? And if you just continue to make a plan, act on it, and then do it and reflect on it, you adjust your plan, you adjust your reflection. And then the key is how do you take things into consideration that really support you? So are you reflecting just on where you messed up, where you need to improve, or are you taking into consideration all the great things you did, all the service things you did, and give yourself some credit, right? I mean, it's like if you do a balance sheet. If you got an expensive car, you put it down as an asset. If you got a nice house, if you got money in the bank, it's the same thing on reflection. Because what you don't want to do is leave every reflection thinking you failed that week. Feel it was a bad week, and next week's probably going to be the same or worse. Because, again, reflection, and Saturdays we're talking about making it mindset day with Leslie and Catherine kind of engineering it, is, how do you use every day with every person here to sharpen reflection skills, to improve mindset, to empower yourself? I've got the Entrepreneur Show for people who want to learn how to do better business, and then even a LinkedIn best practice show where once a week we have LinkedIn people who can say, here's what I'm doing with polls, demonstrations, liven it up, spice it up, So that's where we're going with this program. Buckle up.
So I've got something to share with you about this weekly thing. So
okay, go ahead.
In my master's certification for achievement and manifestation, each week, or actually twice a week, there's an accountability connection. And there are 6 simple questions that we answer every week, which really addresses this. It brings it back top of mind. When you're working on something together, to your point, Donald, once a week is not enough. When we learned our multiplication tables, we didn't do them just on Mondays. The teacher made sure we did them every day, and then we danced around the house 5, 10, 50. We got very excited about it. So in the certification, what actually happens is these 6 questions are shared with accountability partners, which is separate from when we're working together. And it's what is the goal for this 12-week period, as an example? What were the tasks assigned? Did they get completed? Right. So right there are successes, right? So if you complete the tasks you said you were going to do, there's something to be said for that, because how many times we procrastinate and push it off to next week? So, and also, if you didn't complete one of the tasks, where do you need help? Right? Or what happened? Right? And then where do you need support for next week? And what are the 2 tasks you'll do next week? And what this allows, this reflection, intentional reflection is what we're talking about, because haphazard or sporadic doesn't help or give you that same feeling. So if it's built into your schedule, right, then too many days don't go by, especially if you have a problem, right? You, like you said, Donald, the worst thing you could do is wait a week to rectify something from the week before. So this is kind of a neat way of
Mhm.
staying connected, making sure we're on task, and catching something that isn't working quickly, and then acknowledging the things that we said we
Mhm.
do, and then we did them. And
Good.
that is beautiful.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. And I think to build on that, one really needs to exchange reflection with review,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because in a sense, when you think of reflection, you think about someone thinking, right? Reflecting. And
mm,
usually it's curiosity that drives reflection. It's like, how did that work out?
mhm,
Or let me go through what took place and I'll reflect on it. And other ways is like someone does something really strange and out of character, and you got to stop yourself, say, this is unusual, and I'm not used to this person acting this way, and you reflect. And I guess the same thing when anybody approaches you. You have a reflection of what they just projected in their greeting, in their facial expression, in their attitude. And
mhm.
all of a sudden, that reflection becomes a plan instead of reflecting on a plan that's already been in place, right? So sometimes you got to back up to reflect, review what is happening, which allows you to adjust your behavior
And
based
then
on.
let me just add something to that I didn't bring up that's really important. I spent 2.5 years with an emerging enterprise, right, teaching them achievement, manifestation, and all that. And in addition, what I didn't tell you is that the 6 questions that the two partners, right, talk about each week are written simply in an email with the date, right, in the subject line, accountability, and then the answers to the 6 questions. Now,
Mhm.
why that is so important is because it's actually a really quick objective history of solutions through the year that you came up with a challenge. How did you solve it? Because when a year goes by or 2 years and you're trying to remember, well, what did I do? I remember we did something like that. Well, if you have an email file that's by date and covers every task toward a goal, then you'll be able to quickly thumb through and say, oh, that's right. We did do that before, thereby, you know, saving time and money because you don't need to reproduce it. So the written, it has to be simple though. It cannot be complex. So that's why an email line with the date and what it is, accountability, the 6 questions and the answers, and you keep them in one file. And these people, I worked with them for 2 years. Well, let's see, 8, 9, 11 business quarters. And each cohort every person had their own project goal, and in that cohort they had accountability partnerships where they kept track, right, of this. And then when we got to the advanced stage, and you can do this if you don't, if you want to make it simpler, Donald,
Mhm.
right, you can, um, we did an accountability in the higher level where we all shared those 6 questions together, because the second level wasn't as much study. It was more about, where are you in your project, what are the challenges. So that's another way to bring people together, and that's where you help each other, right, because someone else will get an idea for you on how you would solve something.
Well, that would be probably a prime ingredient to masterminding
Mhm,
is everybody's reflecting on what someone's sharing, and in turn, based on whatever they receive, they turn
mhm,
it back in, and
mhm.
pretty soon you're just blending a bunch of stuff, and ultimately maybe you distill one quality idea that wouldn't have happened without the group think. With
Great
that,
idea.
Christine says, I love this idea of on reflecting about the week. I feel I was less productive because I got sick and could not shake it, but I still try to work. I probably should have gotten more rest, and maybe it wouldn't have lasted so long. And, I think that's a reflection in itself is next time you may think, you know, last time I got sick, I wore myself out. Maybe this time I'll be a little gentler. And, that's the other idea is get people where they are. So if Sunday's a day of reflection or belief or whatever people practice or don't practice, everybody is facing a new week tomorrow who's used to working a Monday through Friday week. Not everybody's doing 7 days a week. So the Saturdays and Sundays
Like you. Like
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. It's all about that. But you got to do more to be more. You got to play harder, more consistently at whatever you do, and that's a reflection. Because a good thing about Sunday reflection is balance, right? You can also say, "Hey, I did everything right, but in the wrong proportion."
I know Christine's pain because,
Okay.
as a woman, I remember both my husband and I were working, and when the kids were little, I felt so guilty missing a day of work. I mean, it was torturous. And can you put Christine's comment back up there?
Sure.
Because I want to see it again. I just wanted to address that a little bit. So a couple of things about this, Christine, if you'll allow me. You can choose to not work. What we resist persists. So if we resist the illness and we still try to work, the illness persists. However, when we choose something, it disappears. So if you were to choose, as an example, I'm taking 2 full days off of work. I'm not going to work. I'm calling in sick. Everything will wait for me. I'm going to watch old movies, eat ice cream, and sleep. That can be your choice also, which is extremely fulfilling. You've got the time. You are the one who makes the choice. And to Donald's point, I know the guilt. Okay. I totally get the guilt. Like, I have to be there and I am the one and all that. There's something about fear of criticism. What will people think of me if I don't make that extra effort? But I think we're living in a time now, Christine, that we can actually choose self-care. And that's what I wish for you. I don't ever want you to be sick again, but should you ever get sick again and you need this rest, I want you to take a couple of days off and then call me and let me know you did it.
Well, good advice. Great sisterhood here. And with that said, I believe one has an opportunity to create a life and a work life that doesn't challenge one's health, right? So if your work is joy, right? Let's say you're a painter or an author and you just love to write. Well, loving to write or paint when you're sick is a benefit. Right? It's something to take your mind off of things. And it's not hard. Even what we're doing is not a physical issue, sitting around talking in front of a camera. It's really when you think too hard, try too hard, stress too much. And, sometimes you just got to be happy with who you are and all of who you are. And I have an issue, and it always shows up whenever there's a dinner, I'm always the first to eat. I'm always and everybody laughs about it. Everybody makes jokes about it, but
You're first in line at the buffet. Do you like to be first?
Pretty much, and I don't even know I'm doing it. It's just I'm there. Maybe because I love to eat and I can't wait sometimes. But I accepted that, right? And everybody, and to some people it's a joke. Some people it's always why him. It's easier as you become the oldest because now you've got an excuse or you're the head of the family, right? It happens at strangers' places. So anyways, and they even know. So just to share that if you can be good with what makes you feel good and allow people to know that's who you are, and as long as it doesn't affect anybody else, right?
But Donald, it's true that if you're a painter, you could paint and it isn't necessarily work. But I'm thinking about the CEO and the CEO's men who have worked themselves into the hospital, right? That they are workaholics. They have the responsibility of an entire staff, all their families, their startup. I remember my husband, the last company he worked for, well, he's working for one now, but the CEO ended up in the hospital because it required him, and he did not know how to pace himself. He would not, you hear about workaholics, right? Well, they will make themselves sick.
Yeah, but
literally.
see, here's the thing. That's why that's not a place anybody should want to find themselves. I mean, I had a big company doing a lot of stuff, and I remember during one point I lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. I mean, I was just on hyper. I was working 18. I mean, it was crunch time, and that's what will take you out.
That's right.
So that was one of the reasons to get into retirement, is to leave that rat race, because it's not pure. There's too much politics. There's too much bureaucracy. There's too much self-interest. So when you're working purely for yourself and with yourself, you get the opportunity to choose where you put your time. You're not accountable to anybody. You're not dependent on anybody. You're not worried about losing a job. And it's not easy to get in that position.
But then why did you work that many hours for that long to where you would?
Because it was so important to me.
You mean money, by financially, to grow the company?
Just to get something accomplished that I had worked a long time for, and I had a window. But I knew it was temporary, and I knew what, I was aware, but the point is it was temporary and for a mission versus every day. People working 60 hours a week, flying around.
In the dot-com era, I worked for startup companies. Everybody worked 60, 70 hours a week for sweat equity. This was right around in 2000. I was at Research Triangle Park, right? Like that is the hub for, actually that's where NC State, Duke, and UNC triangulate this area where new clinical research organizations, the Council for Entrepreneurial, there's a lot of stuff going on. And this is when we would hire 80 people and lay off 50, right? Because it was such a volatile market. But we worked 70 hours a week, 60 every single week. And but now with startups, you know what you're getting into. And you're doing it for the joy of working in the startup and also for the stock, right? Because that's one of the things, if the startup does well. Unfortunately, I worked for 3 and only 1 paid off, because if they don't all make it, right? But these are people that are purposely, Donald.
Yeah, but those people are typically very young and very innocent in a lot of ways. And they put up with a lot of stuff that later on they would understand is not right. But that's the learning curve.
That's the reflection.
That's right. And when people get more mature and they wonder who is working for who here and who am I working with, and it goes, it's all conditional. You have great companies with great leadership and great appreciation for their people. And you get the opposite. But let's go on to our comments.
Yes.
We've got Afalabi, hope I pronounce it, from Nigeria. Leslie, I'm looking forward to your answers as promised during your live session. Well, great. Dennis is agree. It's good to reflect what you inspect so you won't regret. And, there's another saying that relates to that, is everybody respects what they expect you to inspect, right? Carol, you like that one, Leslie, huh? I first learned about reflection from the Jesuits' discernment. Great. And I think that's what Sunday's about, is really sharing what got you into a positive, reflective mood. Dennis Brackfeld, never say your last name, but I did today. Reflect and enjoy a strong week and avoid a weak week. Just having another week of fun, games, whatever you got out of this week is what you decided to do this week and how you did it, right? And reflection is what worked great. Well, let's repeat one of those, and what needs a little bit of work, or who did I meet that now will allow me to meet the person I was supposed to meet? So when you look at situations as pivots instead of destinations, well, because of this experience, I decided to go that direction. And if it wasn't for that experience, I'd still be going there. Right.
That's right.
So when people look at disappointment, or more importantly, disconnection, when someone terminates you, you've been disconnected from that company. When someone leaves you, you've been disconnected from that relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, more of it is better if you're already ready to connect to your new thing and you're the one being proactive about it. You're the one reflecting and saying it's coming up short again, right? If you gave somebody $10 and they give you $5 change, how long would it take you to say, hey, how's this working?
It's working well for the other person, but not so much.
But I'm saying you'd be like, hey, I can't keep doing this unless I got a reason. And it's the same thing. If you're making an investment of time and thought and effort, and at the end of the week, you feel bad about whatever took place for whatever reason, you got to make a better investment with that time, or you're going to get the same return.
That's
and
right.
At a certain point, even when you do turnarounds, it's all cash flow. Where's money going? Where's it coming back from? And that's usually the line that you got to draw to stop the bleeding. But you got to be able to measure. You don't drive.
You have to reflect.
That's right.
But most people are on to their next thing.
Most people don't reflect. They weigh the scales in their favor to keep justifying the continuation of things that maybe from an outside viewpoint isn't working, but they're the only ones who are trying to continue to justify it. So I think
some people, but people like us who are very smart, we don't do that very much. We aspire to reflect. We aspire to make better choices with our time based on our values. And all we can do really, Donald, is have conversations like this and hope or intend that something that we say or that comes up in dialogue is what someone needed to hear, whether it's in the audience today or 5 years from now when somebody's watching this on YouTube. I never thought of that. And they go and do something based on something 5 years earlier we said.
Leslie, what you just said is more important than doing the show, is having a show that's been done and now everybody else can feast on it, right? The audience is the first ones to see the show and also the only ones to help impact the show, right? A viewer afterward, it's in the bag. There's nothing you can do unless we decide to edit it. But the people here can drive the conversation, can add their viewpoints and whatever it is, and it allows people to reflect on their reflection. And the other thing about reflecting is you got to be comfortable with things that you're comfortable with. And there's a challenge when you think of anybody else's opinion as more valid or important than yours. Right. So
yeah, that is, you got to get over being right. Like my philosophy, Donald, is that, and I know that all of our beliefs are true for us. And I know that yours and mine aren't the same, and mine and Dennis's aren't, and mine and Afolabi's aren't. So how would I say, well, Donald, my way is the best way? Well, we don't know that because I don't know your way. Right. So what I'm going to say to you is why are you so sure? What makes you believe that if we follow your way, we're going to have better results? And that is where you get away from who's right and who's wrong. But tell me why you believe that, then you will say something magical that I love. Maybe not all of it, but maybe one little thing that you said that has me think, oh, and then I add that to my experience. So this business, you're right. It's everybody is right from their point of view. Find out why they believe they're right. And that's how you learn. That's what this is all about. Right, Donald?
Absolutely. And I think reflection is not about judgment,
Not at all.
right? Because people do the wrong thing. They know they're doing the wrong thing, but they continue to want to do the wrong thing, like cigarette smoking. Let's just take that. That's not healthy. And no matter who you ask, they'll tell you it's the wrong thing to do.
Even the smokers will do that. Let's tell you that.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when someone says, "Hey, it does this for me," and you know what I mean, you could take any habit. Somebody eats too much chocolate every day. Where do you draw the line between right and wrong? What's good for them is good for them. The other thing is when you're more involved with someone else's stuff than yours, how are you reflecting? Why do you want to fix anybody? You know, it's not going to create a majority of one more person believes like you do. There's billions of people, right?
And it creates what you call interim belief. This is an interesting concept. So let me share this concept with you and with the audience. So when we gather other people, let's just say gossip. Okay, we could just take that as an example. Well, so and so did this. This was terrible, wasn't it? Yes, it was really terrible. Would you have done that? No, I wouldn't. So this comes from not a leadership place, but what happens is when you gather people to agree with you, that is called interim agreement. Like for right now, they agree with you. So there's no power really in that, except that when you put someone down and you get other people to agree with you, you somehow feel better. But that's all inauthentic, right? So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. So this interim, it doesn't mean because everybody else agrees with you that is the way, because as you said, there's millions of people, some will, some won't. And why is it when we fail or when we're not happy with ourselves or we think that we could do better, that we notice and look for the criticisms rather than, for example, you know, what I see, for example, with Christine is that the next time, God forbid, when she gets ill, she can make a different choice. She now has, oh yeah, I forgot about, yeah, you know, I can take a couple of days off.
Well,
right?
yeah, you see, that's the power
Yes.
of community is everybody is starting to question themselves when I get sick. You know, how many times do you do things and you really don't want to do them? You're too tired, you're not up to it, but you push yourself, right? And during that whole time, you know, you're being inauthentic in a way. You're not serving yourself, but because of guilt or obligation or gratitude, you say, hey, they came out for me, I got to come out for them. And you can make adjustments. I mean, it's not like an absolute, right? So you can bend a little bit when you need to. It's the consistent stress. It's the consistent, everybody's happy but me. I'm making everybody happy. They're having a ball, and I'm the guy or gal who's got to carry the load or clean up the mess when they leave here, you know, or take care of all this stuff. And you feel bad, especially when you don't do anything, at least to communicate it, right? You can continue to serve somebody in a way that is not a fair exchange, but you're okay with it to a point, right? And at what point is it not relative anymore? At what point does someone not do what they used to do to support something, right? When people used to go halfway and now it's like they don't even remember. But, you know, I think the key is keep moving, keep dealing with more people and more situations. And no one person or no one situation is going to be the make or break. And I always know I got 10 other things to do. So when someone doesn't show up or something doesn't work out, I can move to something else. And most of the time, I'm happy with myself. I'll take a walk. You know, what you want to do is disconnect from things that aren't serving you, reflect, and then reconnect back in a better way. I mean, just like this stuff with Restream, you don't know it until it breaks. And then you don't know it until you can fix it. But once it happens again, it's like boom, boom, bang, right?
Yeah, you brought up something really important about consistency. The only time that I push myself to go above and beyond is like what happened this week, a little reflection. So you know that I do a Friday morning live stream on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and those lessons. And I haven't missed one in, I think 6 months. However, Friday after Thanksgiving in the morning, there is an amazing craft fair that my daughter and granddaughter and I go to every year. And we like to go early in the morning, right before everybody gets there. And it's once a year. And so it was Friday. And so I frantically spent about 2 hours trying to figure out if I could download a live stream from Restream when I've already passed their schedule for get your stuff off our site, right? So you can do it, but not with the live stream. I spent 2 hours because I had a really good one on Desire from the last 12 weeks with Trevor Van Werden. I thought, oh, this will be perfect, right? Because I wanted to set up the event. Everybody was used to Friday morning at 10 o'clock, one principle, and I'm over and over. And that's where the consistency is. So what I ended up doing on Thursday, or actually it was Thursday morning, I went ahead and recorded it in advance. I didn't have a co-host. So I taught. It was a little shorter because I didn't have a co-host and I wasn't fielding the comments. That's the time when I'm going to do what I said I would do. It means more to me to show up at 10 a.m. for the people that are expecting me. And I asked for their forgiveness, right? And told them what I was doing. So for me, if I have to do extra work to keep the consistency and what people expect, I'll do that. It doesn't happen often, but I will do that. I will go above and beyond my normal work to make sure that my word is my bond.
Well, and that's great. And that's why I think we affiliate so well, because we align on that. And I mean, you can't beat 500 or 600 days in a row. And I've never been late a minute. So not only has it been every day, it's been right on time, unless I'm talking too much before time, but that's still part of it. And knowing that what you're doing is, even one day in a year, if everything blew up, it's less than 1/3 of 1% of all your shows that year. That's right. So everything is relative. So someone says, did you have a good show? Well, if one person gets a benefit, and more importantly, it's still going to be an hour's worth of content that a person who sees it a year from now will not know if he had 400 comments on the video or if he had nobody here. But one thing I have learned is if you're going to have an audience, or more importantly, a community, because an audience will be there until the next show, a community will be there forever if you support it properly, is that to be honest with everybody. And, I mean, if nobody would have showed up today, I was planning on just having an open mic day. Like, I can't do a show for an hour by myself.
But you can give them the link and they can jump on.
That's right. So it would have been whether Dennis or Carl or whoever. So, and Charles is here. Charles, I haven't seen you in a bit. Charles is from Hong Kong. Yeah, I knew that.
Ni hao ma, Charles. Ni hao ma.
Don't show off, Leslie.
I'm just asking him how he is in Chinese.
I thought you'd laugh harder. Anyways, Charles is here from Hong Kong. He's part of the largest English-speaking school systems in Hong Kong and has done a lot of stuff. I always love what Charles puts out there. A lot of it is about the school itself and looking for people there. So thank you. And I know weekends are kind of hard because Charles does have a day job. So it's 11.
Well, it's 11:30 at night in Hong Kong.
That's right.
So it's 12 hours later, so he's ready for bed.
That's right. So to log on at 11 o'clock when this starts. But anyways, Charles, I think you're the best. I don't see your picture. Alpha says Thursday. I don't know what that relates to, but for sure. That's the fun of this show, is over a year and a half or whatever it's been. Christine comes here and then comes back, and Charles comes here, and what you find is over time, it's no different than a favorite restaurant, right? If you're a restaurateur, some people will be there every night, and some people would come for their anniversary. Some people would come every month, but it's just because of how often they can, not a direct relationship on the value. Christine says when Rhonda Shear was on, she spoke about accountability. I'm trying to form an accountability group for wellness because I want to prioritize self-care. And, Rhonda will be back. I'm talking to a wonderful lady this week, Linda Goodman, who has done phenomenal stuff with Bob Berg and a great speaker. So we're getting more and more people relating to this show for its relevance and for its ability to relate and align to what they're trying to do. I mean, we've taken the high road here. We don't promote negativity or controversial things. We want to build bridges, not walls. And it shows, quality does show over time consistently. And, you can't beat it over time. So thank you, Christine. And I think that's another key is how do we all grow what we've all experienced here? And that's where I see it transforming into doing things. Once you get the like, trust, and know you, and that's out of the way, who wants to go to work with someone? Who sees a partner? Who sees a mentor? Go ahead, Leslie.
I was going to say, I know the know, like, and trust thing, but the reality is if you're in business and you've got somebody who who has results and you trust, but you don't really like them, you can still work with them. You don't have to like them personally. It's nice to, it's helpful to, but let's say you don't like me at all. And I happen to have more results on achievement than anybody that I know on the planet, right? I mean, I have looked and looked for people. Nobody has created what I've created, not the way I've done it. And the results are pristine. But I don't know if you like me, but you could dislike me, but love the work I'm doing, right? So what choice will you make? So, well, I don't really like her, but my investment is good. I can get my results. I'm going to grow my business. She's got the results. So what? Maybe if I get to know her, I'll like her better. Well, because this is all based on, perception. I'm not saying go pick somebody you don't like. I'm saying don't disallow an expert in a field because you have a trigger with the person. I mean, I had this one guy that came to my mastermind 10 years ago, Donald. A guest brought him, and I don't allow guests, but he did it anyway. He said, I think my friend will really like this. Well, he never came back, and I asked the guy, I said, what happened to your friend? It was the first one, so it wasn't that bad. And he said, Leslie, you remind him of his mother-in-law. He couldn't stand you. So while he liked, right, but we didn't know that. And if I hadn't asked one of my clients, what happened to this guy that you brought in? Well, you remind him of his mother-in-law. So it's okay to not be in love with the person if you've done your due diligence.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
And just because you bring three, let's say, qualities into something, they're not equal, right? Under certain conditions, because what you're saying is making an accommodation, right? You don't like the person, but the deal's strong. And here's the thing about the know, like, and trust. The only critical element is the trust element. Yes. If I don't know somebody, I can get to know them, or I don't care, because sometimes it's what's the deal, right? If chickens are $4 a pound and they used to be $6, that's all I got to know. I don't got to know where they were raised. I don't care what truck they came in on, but if I say I don't trust that person, I won't do anything. I don't care how big, because I know there's a price, right? Liking somebody is a luxury.
It's a nice to have. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, but as long as everybody's respectful to each other and civil, because what I won't tolerate is someone who does things intentionally to make you feel bad or intimidate you or control you. And that's when the conversation starts is, why did you say that? I heard what you said. What were you intending for me to pick up from that?
Yeah.
I-
Did you
it-
mean to hurt my feelings?
yeah,
Were
it's
you
like,
meaning to be rude, or did I misunderstand you?
and I'm saying is at that point, you call it out
That's
for
right.
what it is. You give them a chance to know you're not like they're used to dealing with people. Like, why are you raising your voice? It's just me and you across the table.
Mhm.
What did you have to get huffy for?
Here's an example of reflection that I think you would like. So this is a little different, but when I first went to work for Bob, or to study with Bob Proctor in 2007, I didn't know the man, right? But I knew that he worked with The Secret. And when I called to find out about studying with him, I didn't realize at the time that he was the world's leading authority on Think and Grow Rich. I had no idea. I didn't know what Think and Grow Rich was or a mastermind when I called. Here's the thing. I studied with him. The work is brilliant. I've earned back and much more than my investment, which was large. But guess what happened? I got to know him and I didn't like him at all. I found him to be a little arrogant, curt, right? Sometimes his words were hurtful to people, right? So the reflection there was, and to this day, when I quote him or I point out this is directly from Bob Proctor, I always acknowledge that he was a wonderful teacher, right? I never took away that I didn't align with his values and the way he treated people, right? That was not the way I wanted to be, but I didn't know, right? See, I was looking for the trust and the quality of the work, but I didn't know the man. But then after working with him and watching how he treated me and other people, he did not align. I did not like his bedside manner or how he spoke to people, yet he's a brilliant teacher. I did not walk away because he was rude at times, because he was a genius. So this was an example where reflecting afterward, I realized, oh, this would not be my friend. And would I go and learn from him again? That's a good question.
Well, here's the thing. Sometimes you got to separate the message from the messenger,
Absolutely.
right? So,
That's the reflection. That's what I learned.
yeah. So it's like, hey, he produced this.
Yes.
It's what he produced that had the value, not him, because him is his issue,
To the
right?
point of know, like, and trust. And I will tell you, I've worked with women for the last, and a few smart men, but primarily the women, right? That that are harder on themselves, right? And that make decisions more on the heart. I did this. I can't tell you how many times in programs I invested in something that I needed to learn. And I found somebody that I really liked and I resonated with them, but I didn't do the due diligence. Then I find out that I'm investing in them and we're both learning whatever it is together. So they're learning on my dime because I didn't know. I didn't do the due diligence. I relied on my heart and that I resonated with the person. Boy, on reflection, I learned that a lot of money helped other people become experts in their industry while they were learning on my dime.
Here's the thing is now with live streaming, you could learn and know people for a year before you have to put a nickel in their pocket, right?
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
that's
Oh,
where the consistency and time is. Anybody can be a flash in the pan and
Yeah.
look pretty fancy and dance really well, but are they going to
Mhm.
be there every day? Are they going to be there for you every day? Or are they wanting you to be there for them every day? So it's a control dynamic and due
I think
diligence.
Bob Proctor saw himself in me. I have a feeling that we're a lot alike, and I triggered him.
Well, you trigger everybody, so
I-
that's not, that's not his fault. Don't blame it on Bob. But you know, if you can laugh at it, it's okay with it. And I think everybody has to understand, and that's why over time you start to realize people's intentions.
Mm.
you realize how they do actually serve people, because there's people that put themselves on a pedestal but don't do anything to justify being on that pedestal except for their ability to name it and claim it. And the next day, everybody's got to go back to work. So you could be a genius yesterday, but if it doesn't continue, you're a flash in the pan. And, you
Mhm.
know, failure is so good for humility
Mm.
until you've been totally humbled.
Mm.
And a guy like Bob Proctor and Deepak and all those people who just rose and got this enormous audience, like they can't do anything wrong, they get entitled. They feel like, hey, I earned it. I worked hard, and I'm sure Bob did. He didn't start
He
out.
did. I mean, my God, he spent 50 years working on it. He didn't make anything when he started. He was making, I think, less money per month when he first started out than his bills. So there was no question about his credibility, his expertise, and the difference he's made in the world. So
Well,
all
yeah,
of those things were good, but just because I didn't his bedside manner didn't appeal to me is no reason for me to make a judgment. What I was looking for was the quality and the results, the quality of the material, the consistency of results. Once I found that, it didn't matter that I didn't know
yeah,
him.
but here's what's even better today is now you can get all the message without ever getting to deal with the messenger. I mean, I see Bob's got all these shorts on YouTube,
Oh,
60.
but now he passed away February 3rd this year, so I just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah, I think I heard that, but if you go to TikTok, he's got all his stuff is out there.
Mhm.
And today people can access guys like Jim Rohn, Brian
Mhm.
Tracy, Og Mandino. There's no end to the personal development access.
Mhm.
30 years ago, 25 years ago, you had to travel or you had to wait for them to come to town
That's right.
before you could be part of it. Now you can create a whole library of personal development people, and you'll never have to know how awful they were in their own life. Because you're just getting the distillation, you're getting the final product.
Let me tell you, it's so much fun when you do those things. I mean, that's where Wayne Dyer was. That's where Curtis Sliwa was. That's where Mary Morrissey was. I mean, he used to bring in for these week-long trainings all sorts of big wigs, right? And it's quite an experience, right, to do that. But you're right, you don't have to. But there's something about it, the in-person at one of those events. You just have to be very careful. Well, I went for training, but if you go to any personal development event where they give away practically free tickets, right? And it's one big day in your local arena, and it's Colin Powell, and it's this person and that person. Let me tell you something. Don't bring any money in. It's like a Chippendale show. What happens is the energy to buy their products in the back of the room, it acts like a virus. What happens is it moves very quickly like an amoeba throughout the audience. It's the same thing that happens if you've ever been to a a gentleman's show or a gentleman's club. So there's this frenzy that occurs energetically, and it spreads like wildfire, right? And so if you ever go to one of those things, be advised that all the stuff they're selling in the back of the room is also on their website. Save your money, because buyer's blues is what happens when I remember people rushing past me and getting up to run with them. It's like this this energetic phenomenon. I would tell people, bring in your cash and your ticket. Don't even bring a credit card or any extra money in your car in the parking lot, because you will go and you will be compelled to
Yeah,
buy this stuff.
but that's really how most successful marketing works,
I
right?
know.
You
You got
see
to be smarter.
you see a car that does all these wonderful things, and you say that's me, or they make you look like you're the person who should have that. And that's the key. again, to reflection. How many people have buyer's remorse? 70% of the people who sell their company on Friday, on Monday, are either depressed or have seller's remorse because they got their money and now they go to their schedule and like that second family, I'm not part of anymore. The people I've got to see every day and got to learn and grow with and see their families change, that's a whole part of your life that isn't there. And now you got all of yourself back, all of your
You need
time.
more reflection, back to reflection. Be sure that the thing that you're going to do you really want to sell this company? How will you feel? Right.
Well,
You could even strategize and say, okay, so let's pretend that I sell the company and I've got $1 million in the bank and we're going to go to Maui. Right. What's it going to be like on Monday morning when I've been getting up every Monday morning for X amount of years to go to work, to be with this family of people? Am I going to be okay with cutting them out of my life pretty much? And maybe you'll still do the same thing, but it's back to reflection. It's about being present to reflect on the wins, the losses, the lessons you learned. What are the things that I want to remember so that moving forward, I perhaps don't make those same mistakes?
Well, and it also could spur somebody on to create a new family from scratch, because I know when you leave 50 people, there's probably 20 you're glad to leave, right?
Yeah.
They're just legacy people that you could never fire, and they never did bad enough to leave, but you're still kind of stuck with them
That's
because
true.
they're just nice people, but they're not what you need anymore. What gets you there doesn't always take you to the next step. And you have to know when to engage and when to disengage, and understanding that, because I know so many people who have never built an outside life.
Mhm.
So if you're a doctor, and eventually they end up in a lazy boy and dying in a year, right?
Mhm.
Because their whole life, their whole purpose, what's even harder is if you're a pro athlete and you're 27 and you're old and now you got 50 years ahead of you and you can't do what was your passion anymore at a certain point. So I think
This is where they can, and this is where people like that who are young and retire in sports, they physically may not be able to do it, but they become part of the team. They are an advisor, they are an assistant coach, something like that. Our purpose, very often, the thing that we're really meant to do, is typically revealed when we're little kids. This is how I've helped people figure out, well, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And years ago, my friend who was in publishing with Adobe, she worked with them, did all their templates, and the publishing game was changing. It was changing to self-publishing rather than big print. And we went to lunch one day, and my friend said to me, I don't know what to do next, Leslie. She was about 45. She said, I'm done with publishing. I've done the books. I don't like where it's going. I want to do something totally new. So we're having puttanesca at an Italian restaurant. So delicious. And so I asked her this question, and I would ask anyone here that's struggling with that. When you were a little girl or little boy, and it was still sunny out, you finished your chores, right? Maybe it was daylight savings, and your mother said, go out and play until it gets dark. What was your go-to thing whenever you had free time? So during this hour-long lunch, she said, she tried a few different things. It's not 100% easy to figure out, well, what was my go-to thing? Finally, toward the end of the meal, she said, I know what it is. I said, what is it? She said, my father always had a garden. And whenever I had free time, I went and worked in the garden, weeded, etc. We left that luncheon, and she created within 9 months growandshare.org, which is a nonprofit that follows. In the Old Testament, the Jews used to leave the edge of their gardens unharvested for the poor people. So Grow and Share came out of that conversation at lunch, which does beautiful things. And what it was about was local places would donate the plants to her, and then you would come by and pick up the plants. And the only thing you had to do to get the plants was to sign an agreement that when you harvested your vegetables, that you would put a basket out by the road for your neighbors to come and take. And it was about keeping the carbon footprint low. So for her, she spent the next 5 years developing this through one question. And she was at 45 at a crossroads. She didn't want to do publishing. That was her area of expertise. That's what she knew. But she didn't know anything really about modern agriculture or any of that stuff. But once we planted the seed of what she loved to do, it brought back all those memories, the love, all those feelings. And that's was her work.
Well, that's incredible. I know you got to split pretty soon, but I also found that we have comments that aren't showing up on the screen. Let me cover them. Ashif is here. Gratitude, yes.
Hi, Ashif.
Yeah, I love Ashif, but somehow he's not showing up on the comments on the show, but on the comments on the post. Ashif says, reflection requires unrobing with self-honesty and self-awareness without judgment, a dialogue with oneself towards true solutions. Wendy Weissman's here. I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome.
Hi, Wendy.
Enjoy the conversation today. Gokul Harsh is here. Haven't seen you in a while. Ashif comes back with solace we need so much must allow, embrace, and find balance from within. Ashif says the early bird. Ashif says true choice is your own. That's about 6 comments. Ashif comes back. I often use his best practices to tweak. I would say to everybody, refresh your browser or sign in and sign off of LinkedIn, because, you know, there's so many quality comments I've missed, just to say a quick okay. And look like we've covered the bases finally. Thank you again, Ashif. And thank you, Leslie, for popping in again for 2 days in a row. And always,
you're making me a star, Donald. I always want to be a star.
By popular demand. So anyways, you know, it's like doing an encore. So thank you all. Have yourself a wonderful day. Reflect on what your week was, but more importantly, reflect on what your week can be. And reflection can turn into visualization, which was our word yesterday, which then we built on today. So we're builders. Glad to have you building with us. Thank you so much. Come back tomorrow in 23 hours. We've got Kelly and Enrique, who's just a superstar, and we'll see you then.